So to help us make sense of it, I'm joined by an economist, Mally Likulela, a respected voice on fiscal policy and public finance. Mally, thank you for joining us on Unpacking what this review really means for ordinary Namibian. Mally, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Welcome. Always good to be here.
All right. The midterm budget review is always a moment of reflections. What is your first impression of this year's review?
Two things. Number one, the review just tends to confirm or reaffirm government's underlying commitment towards human development. That means government at all times wants to ensure that the human capital, the human are developed before any other thing. So what we saw yesterday, we saw exactly that. The Minister of Finance that redirecting to address those issues that are directly with human development aspects. That's number one. Number two, we saw a budget that was made under very, very difficult circumstances. Happy that the minister and the team did finally come up with something despite all of those challenges. But this is something that we should always expect. I mean, the minister of her caliber has been around for some time. I'm sure she understood what was exactly required of her. And for me, I think she delivered quite well.
Yeah. Well, the revenue shortfall are down by 3.2 billion. So in your opinion, what behind this drop?
Revenue are driven by various factors that are outside of government's control. These are trade, the economic environment, the economic dynamics. And usually when the economy is not doing well, you can clearly see it from the revenue streams because these revenue streams are attached directly to economic activities. We know that since the COVID-19, our economy and even the global economy hasn't really recovered that much to the levels that we are used to. So the revenues that are coming out from those activities were constrained, and that is why we see this shortfall. And as you know, also our revenue basket is heavily determined by what is happening in the Southern African Customs Union, where South Africa is a big player. And whenever South Africa is having some problem, it trickles down to all other countries, including Namibia. And what we have seen is exactly that. So our economy are sort of trying to adjust from what is happening in South Africa generally. And so this is a cause for concern for policymakers.
Yeah. Well, does that shortfall does it say something deeper about how our economy is performing this year?
Well, you see, our economy, like most of the economies in the world, has been performing in response to what we came out or what we went through not so long ago. Yeah. So this is to say that the economy has, at the beginning of the year, the economy began to show some signs of recovery. Yeah. What this means is that we have not seen a big number of businesses closing. But what we have seen is we've been seeing a lot of money coming in through FDI, that's foreign direct investment, to come and boost and spur economic activity, especially in the mining sector. And we have also seen a booming in the tourism sector. But as you know, the tourism sector makes money at a certain time of the year. Yeah. And when that season comes, the activities are also slowing down. So that sort of gave a very good boost to the economy at the beginning of the year. However, we have seen again that towards the middle of the year, we have seen a lot of other factors that have weighed down on our economy. And most of these factors are really external factors. We are talking about the geopolitical issues that affect international trade. We are talking about the worsening climate conditions that continues to weigh down on agriculture. We are talking about, you see, when there is geopolitical issues, even the flow of tourists is affected because tourists are not, they need to be guaranteed safety and stuff like that. Although it is not happening here in Namibia, but the rate at which it's happening globally affects the decision for tourists to come. So we have seen this at the beginning of the year, and there was some optimism, but towards the middle of the year, the environment sort of changed slightly, and so the revisions now are somehow looking at the more downward revisions to say maybe we might not grow as much as we had anticipated at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Now, the other talking point is the public debt. and is now at 76.3 billion. That's a big number. Should we be worried?
Well, we should be worried and also not to be worried.
Yeah.
Why should we be worried? We should be worried because there is no insight how government is going to manage this big number. What that means is that what is our plan B to tackle this growing debt stock? Yeah, that's our that's the main concern for me. Government is yet to come and give us to come and position itself how it's going to go about navigating this thing. The truth of the matter is that governments all over the world cannot do away without borrowing. Yeah. Borrowing is an integral part of fiscal policy, and usually government then attaches a certain plan B, what's normally called a debt sustainability plan. So maybe the debt sustainability plan is there. We haven't just maybe delved into it that much, but we are concerned about the speed at which the debt stock is growing. That's number one. Yeah. Number two concern is that we are yet to see more tangible output as a result of those borrowings. Yeah. What we are seeing is a lot of operational and consumption spending attached to this, and we are concerned because we are beginning to get worried. How are we going to generate money to repay this debts that we have? Under normal circumstances, the ideal situation would have been you borrow and you build an infrastructure that can guarantee you a future streams of income that you can then use to pay back that money. But we are not seeing much of those. I know that government is doing quite a lot in that space, but the absence of a very clear picture for everyone to see, it sort of makes people a little bit unsettled about the situation. And we know that government is going to redeem quite a substantial amount of some loans, and we are saying where that money will come from, it will need to be filled, that gap. What is the way forward? So all of these things, sort of send some rattle into people's, mind about that situation.
Now, the minister spoke about prioritization and reallocation. Well, in simple terms, what does that mean for the average listeners?
Yeah, you see, when you make a budget at the beginning of the year, you make certain assumptions.
Yeah.
That if these assumptions materialize, this is how we are going to do things. And you are operating within those assumptions, within those projections. Now, if these assumptions changes because of changes in the macroeconomic environment, it warranties you that you go back to the book again and say, okay, maybe these resources that we had anticipated to direct in this manner, it's not going to be impactful in achieving our development goals. Maybe we should redirect it this way so that it's aligned with the assumptions that you have made at the beginning of the year. What we have seen now the minister has done is that most of the assumptions are still holding, but the situation has warranted the situation of reallocating to impact, to enhance the impact of the resources at hand. And also, number two, when you make some budget estimation at the beginning of the year, you assume that certain projects will kickstart during that period. And due to this or the other reason, the project is not starting. You cannot let that money lie idle because that's value for money. You redirect it to a place where it can be more impactful. And this is exactly what the minister has done. You must understand, a budget is just not numbers. There are faces there, there are humans there, there is reality on the ground. So when our leaders do this oversight in regions to go look at what is happening on the ground, they come back with the report. These reports are the one that they inform and advise the minister to say, hey, we have been to this and this area. We realize that we are not doing much there. If we have some resources that we can reallocate so that our people can have this and that, can you please do that? So this conversation then begins to form part of the midterm budget review. It is really a point of reflection to increase the impact of government's, development agenda.
So we want to keep spending within 89.4 billion. So what happens if that ceiling is actually breached?
If
we go beyond that amount, that budget.
If this midterm budget is approved, it basically means that by law we shall not go beyond.
Yeah.
Because this is the law. we can spend under this ceiling. We can't go beyond. What can happen is there are some exceptions within a departmental level where they can do what's called environmentation. Environmentation is where you realize that, okay, maybe we have budgeted to employ 40 people, and these 40 people are not yet onboarded, and there is scope to do more with the personnel that is already there. Then that 40 positions are frozen. What happened to that money? That money is environmented to another budget line, but within the ceiling. That way, you are not going beyond the ceiling, but you are able to do a lot with the limited resources that you have. So what happened yesterday, we cannot call it environmentation unless we say, okay, it's environmentation at a national scale. What happened yesterday was reallocation from votes from this department to that department. But within the departmental, intra-departmental, that process is allowed and is ongoing to help us not to go beyond the ceiling. But all of these things must be done within the stipulated financial management practices and sticking to prudential commitments, because again, you don't want to environment left, right, and center. You want to environment only when it's really, really necessary. And the minister yesterday sort of alluded to the fact that a lot of jobs that were planned to be, a lot of positions that were planned to be filled might not necessarily be filled this year. So the money will be taken to those critical areas which government really believes that this is really necessary. I mean, you saw yesterday, the government wants to employ a good number of health personnel, a good number of teachers. These are areas that are really, really critical. And so certain budget line can be put on ice for a little bit so that the money can go to these areas and ensure that development is certain.
The other thing also is that when low-performing projects, as you referred to, low-performing project lose funding, what signal does that send to the ministries or agencies behind them actually?
Yeah, I think we are moving towards a situation where there should be some sort of accountability and responsibility why those projects are not taking off the ground, because every delayed project, it is a defeat of the whole purpose. If there was a road that was supposed to be connected from point A to point C to save the farmers there, and this road is not built, it defeats the whole purpose. And so whoever is responsible along the value chain must be held accountable. Now, when the minister is reallocating resources from this capital project to that, the capital owners are beginning to get worried to say, okay, come next year, we might not get these resources at all. And so this calls to action for them to really do everything within their power to get the project started. Of course, there are some issues that are beyond their control. There's procurement processes that are not within your control that can take things a little bit far. And also there's legal issues involved. Many, many things. But again, you must do everything within your power to make sure that at least the project gets started so that you signal your commitment to delivery. You understand?
Yeah. So education and health, education seem to be the biggest winner, 814 million added. Why do you think government made that call? Because funding free tertiary education, I think is a very bold move. But the other question is, how sustainable is it in the long term, in the long run? How would it be sustainable?
Yeah, I think for now that conversation might be a bit premature to have the conversation of how sustainable. I think what we must be talking about now is the signal of commitment to human capital. Look, Namibia is a young nation, and if we are not going to invest in a young people, we are not going to derive or harvest what is called demographic dividend. Right now is the time to invest in the young people so that 10 years from now, the dividend is harvested, the reward comes in. And that is government's focus to say, look, whatever we can do, let us not forget our young people. Gone are the days where money was spent on the older generation who their economic value is beginning to shrink naturally. So now the idea is, the focus is to start early, investing in human at an early stage, so that you guarantee your dividend once the person have now gotten into a stage where they now begin to be productive. And this is very much in line with Vision 2030. It's very much in line with NDP6, that all speaks about a Namibian that is able to work, a Namibian that is healthy, a human capital producing country. You cannot do this without taking this kind of commitment. As to whether it will be sustainable and unsustainable, it's a very important conversation. But for now, let the process start. Yeah. Because trust me, there are various factors that are hindering access to education. Some of them that are within the government to say, okay, if registration fee is a hindrance, let it fall. Let government take over that, so that a Namibian child can access tertiary education without any hindrance. What will happen 5 years, 10 years from now? That's another conversation. For me, my biggest concern really is the quality. Let us maintain the quality of education for which we are investing millions, so that when this cohort finishes, let it not be a situation of mismatched skills and all those kind of things. No, these investments must come with reorientation of the system, so that these young people become highly employable. If they are not employed, they become highly entrepreneurial, so that we begin to reap the benefit of this investment. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the budget review cuts the development budget by 9.38%. Should we be concerned that infrastructure project might slow down?
Yeah, in every budget review or in every exercise of this, there's what's called the trade-offs. In economics, we have a term that's called the opportunity cost. You look at what you can afford to sacrifice. Yeah. Yeah. So what happened yesterday was short-term pain for the long-term gain. Yeah. Meaning that those projects that the resources have been reallocated, of course, they're not going to be happy. They'll feel that they won't do. But if you look in the long run, if that 600 million that is directed towards free education or subsidized education, in the long run, it will be a very, very big benefit for the country. Yeah. So those are what we call the trade-offs. And there is nothing that anybody can do. You have to sacrifice, because remember, the principle of economics is that resources are limited, but the needs are unlimited. So you have to prioritize. That's why this exercise really, really must be done with a very, very sober mind. And what we saw yesterday is really government trying to say, look, we may be able to sacrifice a road here, a road there, a bridge there, but our people must have access to education, must have access to health, because these are the foundation of human capital development.
Yeah. So you also mentioned earlier, we have also got slower projected growth, now at 3.3% instead of actually 4.5%. What does that slowdown tell us about where the economy is heading?
The slowdown in the economy?
Yeah.
Yes, like I said earlier on, Namibia's economic fundamentals are quite unique to Namibia. We are a small open economy whose growth depends on the appetite of the global economy. If America is struggling, we can see that they will not consume a lot of our diamonds. Yeah. If China begins to flood the diamond market with synthetics, that will eat on our diamond. So these are situations that are really beyond our control. And when they happen, they definitely slow our economic growth. However, we need to always have a contingent plan. And that is why, in terms of our industrialization or diversification policy or strategy, we need to look inward so that we are able to leverage on our own. Of course, mining sector is quite a bigger sector. Of course, tourism is quite a bigger sector. But what are we doing for ourselves within so that we are able to counter these forces? Yeah. This is what China did some years ago. They looked inward, such that even if a bigger country, a bigger consumer of their product comes down, with the flu, at least they have something to cover that hole. We need to do that, and this is really our biggest challenge. Unfortunately, it's the way our economy has been wired for a very, very long time, but we can still do something about it. And it's a wearing trend that when things begin to look good, and then boom, again the economy. That's the normal story of economy. It's booms and recession, but you need to smoothen those cycles or those swings so that your economy is stable.
Yeah. The budget mentioned the NDP6 as the guiding framework. So are we still on track with those development goals?
Yeah, you see, development is not a journey that you say, okay, I will be in Oshakati at 2 o'clock, and then boom, at 2 o'clock you're in Oshakati. Yeah. You're making, like I said, you're making assumptions to say that if A, B, C, D holds, then A, B, C, D will happen. So what we have seen is that there has been major crises that have derailed our development agenda, our development journey. If you look at the erratic weather conditions that have hammered Namibia, that have hammered the Southern African, to affect the agriculture sector, which is one of the mainstays of economy. Definitely you cannot expect things to go smooth as planned. Not so long ago, we were hammered nicely by COVID. You can't expect programs you can't expect business as usual. And if you look in the past few years, we have registered many severe geopolitical crises that have also weighed down on our development agenda. So yes, it's fair to say we are not really there because of situations that are beyond our control. However, there is still enough room to enhance, to tie loose ends here and there, such that we can still count on our development programs, because some signs of recovery, some signs of resilience has already started to appear. And we need to give it time. We may not achieve everything within the 2030 time frame, but we must make sure that we build a strong foundation for which to complete this magnificent work that we have started, you see.
Now, in your view, what is the most encouraging aspect of this review?
Say that again, my brother.
In your opinion, what is the most encouraging aspect of this review? And what is the most worrying, actually, you know?
But in all this, in our journey, I think, like I said, one area that government has not really paid enough attention to was to invest in education at an early stage. Yeah. And I think that has begun to change some few years ago. We have seen government putting a lot of money on ECD, putting a lot of money on programs for children so that they build a strong foundation. And like I tell you, if this continue in few years to time to come, Namibia will begin to reap the demographic dividend. Yeah. That's number one. Number two, in terms of infrastructure, Namibia has really heavily invested in key infrastructure. Our roads remains top notch. We have seen a number of infrastructure being upgraded. We have seen some commitment from our development partners committing resources to upgrade our water infrastructure, our energy infrastructure. Development takes time, my brother. Yeah. And it is not like, I'm going to have breakfast and then we have lunch. No, sometimes they can be derailed. But what is important is you have planted the seed. Yeah. My only concern, of course, is the slow execution rate of some of these projects. We have, and it's not only physical infrastructure, also the slow pace of our policy reforms. We have lost some very good businesses because of our policy deficiencies in various aspects. Yeah. And if this is not addressed, we'll continue losing a lot of FDIs. We'll continue losing a lot of opportunities. And that's why I was happy yesterday when the minister mentioned of those reforms in the new tax laws that is coming to align our economy to be competitive. That's very good news, because then we can compete with the best of the best. Instead of losing good businesses to Botswana, good business to South Africa because they've got a better tax regime, we will attract those. And with our magnificent environment, I think we will become unstoppable. So those, for me, are really some concerns around this whole thing. But I'm happy that the seed was planted. It is a matter of just watering waiting for it to germinate, and we will be very, very far.
Yeah, for a Namibian, for ordinary Namibian now listening now. So, what is one takeaway about how this review might affect their daily lives?
Say that again.
If we have now like an ordinary Namibian listening now, what would be one takeaway about how this review might affect? How would that actually? One takeaway?
Yeah. So yeah.
How this might affect their daily life?
For me, if the minister did not look at the issue of free education, I would really not even read this budget.
Yeah.
What came out quite strongly for me is the allocation for kickstarting this free education. Trust me, yeah, this initiative, it is a game changer. It is a game changer because we are seeing now a government putting action to the words. So the government announced that come next year, free education, and this is it. Money is there. There will be some teething issues here and there at the beginning. There's some questions because every time something new is done, there's always questions. There's always skepticism. There's always fear of the unknown. But at least government has shown that it is really serious with this free education. And here is the money. So first quarter, we are going to see a new cohort entering into the system with subsidized free education. And for me, this is a game changer.
Well, if, say, for example, you could advise the Minister of Finance right now, what would be your advice for her?
For me, my biggest advice, my number one advice to the Minister of Finance is to really look into the matter of execution. If it requires that we re-look and review our procurement policy to fast-track procurement processes, I think this will take us very, very far in no time because we cannot continue to reallocate money that is earmarked for projects back to operation. It says a lot about the budget credibility. It says a lot about the confidence. You know, it erodes confidence in our budget if we every time we move the goalpost, for the lack of better word.
Yeah.
People will begin to ask, but your assumptions, why do you budget on the assumption that you are not very robust? So, and I'm glad that this time around, not really a lot of money has been reallocated from capital, from development to operation. Yeah. That shows that there is some work that's being done to really ensure that the midterm budget review does not significantly change the face of the budget. And I'm happy that this is not an additional budget, but it's within the already projected budget, which is really an element of hope for those that are worried about the budget credibility. To say that, look, we are not changing the global ceiling because we don't want to an additional budget. Yeah. We are trying to maintain prudential standards. So whatever we do, we're going to do it within the ceiling, and that's it. So it is really, for me, a good thing. And I would encourage the minister, I would encourage everyone that is involved to just press on because the budget is the heart of fiscal policy. And it needs to be guarded.
Now, looking ahead, as an economist, what will you be watching most closely as we move now into the next fiscal year?
The revenue. I want to see what plans NAMRA has to counter these shortfalls. I want to see how soon will those new tax reform proposal will be implemented, because many times when we talk about budget, we focus mainly on where the money is going, not where the money is coming from. We need to ensure that money keeps coming so that the budget can be implemented successfully. And we also need to begin to think about getting a plan B or an alternative revenue stream to support the SACU. Of course, we know that the SACU revenue stream contributes plus minus 35% as a single budget line. We need to find various alternatives. And I should mention here the work, great work that NAMRA has done in the shortest period of time. We have seen them really reaching some of those revenue targets, which is really providing comfort to the minister to say, okay, I think things are happening now. So going forward, I will be looking to see how the revenue dynamics changes, and I hope to see some serious improvements in that space, because this is very, very crucial. It's very key to successful fiscal policy implementation. Without robust income or streams, the budget can be compromised very seriously.
Yeah. So, any other information that maybe I haven't asked you that you deem to be important for our listeners on the budget review?
Yeah, I just encourage fellow Namibians to get involved. These things are not for government, they are not for politics, they are for everyone.
Yeah.
They must begin to ask questions, where is their voice in the budget? So if I'm coming from Okangwati, where is Okangwati in the budget? Was I consulted? Did I do something to ensure that I'm consulted? I'm talking about participatory process. And for young people, I expect them to even be more participatory. Look, we know now of the Youth Development Fund, and there is so much information and so much misinformation about that fund, of which the youth must be able to have first-hand information so that they increase their participation. How much was dispersed so far, which projects, and all those kind of things, so that in the next round of the disbursement, the number of youth must grow. We must position ourselves to benefit from some of these initiatives. The reason sometimes they pass us by is maybe we don't have information. We don't know about it. And we need to start participating at grassroots level so that we know how to influence these resources to come our way. Then we can also participate in the mainstream economy.
All right, Molly. That was really, truly insightful. You have helped unpack not just the numbers, but the story behind them, story of choices, trade-offs, and resilience in tough times. And thank you for joining us today on Unpacking the Day.